Hello and welcome to another episode of the CollabTalk Podcast, where we discuss the convergence of technology, business productivity, and collaboration culture. My co-conspirators today, as always, are Mr. Sean McDonough, a senior solution architect and consultant with Akumina in the Cincinnati, Ohio area, and also an M365 Apps Services MVP, and Mr. Geoff Varosky, a senior architect for Insight and the co-founder of the new Janky Workshop, as opposed to the old Janky Workshop, which nobody wants to watch that out on YouTube.
Well, and I think the pseudo new Janky Workshop is where we're at now, because it's not truly new anymore. It's just new in Geoff's mind.
Well, right. It's like every year when they have like the President's Day sale and they push their mattresses, they're going to have a sale and there'll be the new Janky, and they'll do something and then make it truly new. Like right. Geoff is gonna get hair plugs and then grow it out blonde, like bright red or blonde.
Bring back the mullet, one hair at a time.
Oh, I still got some business in the back there. I can grow that out.
Business in front, party in the back, man.
All I ask is if you ever plant any of the beard up to the top of the head, it has to be the same shape. Like I want to see like the mustache and then the beard, like right off the top.
Like
that's all I ask.
His head's been inverted. Suddenly, I'm thinking of Deadpool and Wolverine. Deadpool and Wolverine with his hair plug system.
Yeah,
it's a hair system. It's a toupee.
It's a system. That's right. Not only am I the president, but so our focus today is takeaways from Microsoft Ignite. So here we are. And by the way, gentlemen, happy Thanksgiving. Since this is going live, it's on Thanksgiving. So yes. So it technically it was recorded last week. I mean, we are in last week. This is this week, but last week.
Now,
anyway,
let me do the calculation.
Yeah. It's the
week.
higher math people.
Now, sir.
Yeah.
We need a skilled math.
When was that? That was then.
Yeah. So this is it's interesting. Watching the feedback, I was on a couple calls but watching social media, a bunch of the Twitter conversations, LinkedIn and Facebook mentions. What I saw, which was hilarious, but it was pretty broad across the interwebs. Feedback on the keynotes were two things. One, that I should say three things. One was that the applause was a bit lackluster, that there wasn't a lot of energy. Yeah, and the second point is because there was so much focus around Copilot, and people are feeling, and certainly within the community that are active out there, not talking customers, are like kind of getting burned out on the messaging around Copilot. Like, yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
But we're calling everything Copilot now and that. But the third thing, and this was hilarious, there was somebody that was on stage. I need to go find the video too, that was carrying a coffee cup. And it was apparently kind of, saw the pictures of it and stuff earlier this week, kind of colorful, like a Starbucks, but I don't know if it was a Starbucks or not, but all the talk about the coffee cup, and people were like, just thought that it was like an object lesson for whatever he was talking about.
There's going to be a big reveal. Yeah.
And then he walked off an hour later, walked off the stage and never mentioned the cup. Like, people were like, what is it for? Why is it there? What does it all mean?
Does it have soy milk?
I don't know.
Yeah, when people are focusing on what you're carrying your drink in instead of what you're messaging, it's a good sign that your messaging probably needs some help. It'd be the one thing that would help us at this point, I think, is if Microsoft eased up on just the brute force Copilot messaging and instead started to focus on differentiation.
What are you talking about, Sean? I love it. Keep it going.
You love it. Well, as I said at the beginning of this, Copilot is still a drinking game, and it's the sort of thing where you listen to a Copilot talk, and if you're drinking, you're hammered by the end of it. It's Copilot. I'm thinking,
as a non-drinker, all it means is that I am just wired with caffeine by the end of that, whatever session that is.
This is that scene out of Being John Malkovich where he goes into his own head, and everybody is John Malkovich, and it's and they talk, and it's Malkovich. That's Copilot.
That is. Yep. Yeah. So we should just replace random words with Copilot throughout this session. Just say it.
If you
I was
Copilot,
co-piloting the other day, and while I was co-piloting, I co-piloted my co-pilot, and woo, co-pilot.
my Copilot needs a Copilot, so that's a Copilot squared, or
Yeah.
I'm thinking again, Deadpool. I broke the fourth wall within the fourth wall. That's like 16 walls.
I just like that we are it's funny for a lot of reasons. I mean, I love the whole meme and the t-shirt of make 1984 fiction again. And we're almost in that where it's in fact once in a while when one of my kids will mention something like, I just keep hearing this phrase again and again, like in media, or this Copilot's a great example of this, and I'll say, I think this whole Copilot is double plus good. If you don't know what I'm talking about, folks, read a book, okay?
Read a book.
Sheesh.
Pick a book, any book. Copilot a book.
Well, one thing, what I do love about this time of year, we get it with Build, of course, but is reading through the book of news. And so this, instead of just having announcements that are happening all the time, because there's so much that's been going on.
Fire.
And you had, so almost a year ago, I was interviewing Jeff Teeper over at the ESPC event. After his keynote, and he talked about how this year 2024 was going to be the biggest year for SharePoint ever, and looking at where we've all been kind of waiting, like, what are the big things around SharePoint? And now when you look at a lot of the announcements, there's just some monster releases that are announced here. I've been waiting for the book of news. I guess I can open the screen here. There we go. The book of news. But thumbing through this, the book of news, it forces Microsoft to take the scattered blog posts and all the different pieces and build, concentrate it. Yeah. Yes. I love that. So I appreciate this effort. So
this page in this document is a herding of cats.
It is.
Some very roaming cats, because Microsoft, any of you who've ever interacted with people inside Microsoft, you think of it as a monolithic organization, but you might as well have an aggregation of smaller companies. That's how they operate.
Right. Well, that was like famously Microsoft was known for the whole culture of the battling business units against each other and
business units in the Ballmer days, right?
Well, it goes back to the Gates and Ballmer era where they would very much do that and throw teams against each other, building similar things and see which ones kind of stuck and which one really made a difference, and then they would absorb the other or shut it down completely.
And the whole stack ranking thing that it's just. But
it was not so much on the people management side, but I was thinking more of the product side. Okay. But yes, you are correct about that. Which was part of the culture, which I did not care for when I worked there.
And you weren't alone.
Yeah. But from a product standpoint, it was almost like the way that they approached R&D. So like, go and try this from a number of different groups. And so Microsoft even have, and I know I'm going sideways here, but they had, even if you look back when they brought Ray Ozzie in, so he had left all the IBM world and had started Groove, and so he was brought in, and they started the Office Labs became a thing, and they were experimenting in a bunch of different areas. It was really an exciting time to see that effort move away from the battling business units for the most part towards more of this experimental, but RD, split up different areas. And anyway,
is that where Microsoft's Garage Labs kind of came in?
I think it was during that time. I have to go back and look.
One product I think is Mouses Without Borders, where you could use a single mouse across two computers. And you could have one computer on this screen, one computer on this screen, and use a single mouse to go between the computers to control the cursor. That was one of the great. Brian Jackett put me onto that. Brian now works for Microsoft, He's in the
He
graph.
knew too much, so they got pulled into the Borg, absorbed by the Borg. Yes.
The Borg.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of really cool things. Yeah, what happened to that? I do remember that.
I think it's still out there. I'll have to go look for it. I didn't think to do that because I didn't know we'd talk about mouses without borders or the Garage Lab. But
How dare you bring up a topic that we've not pre-organized and set up to be talked about officially?
You just described my whole life.
I don't even think it exists. I think it when they moved to Burlington, it got shut down. But they had a garage in Cambridge.
Okay.
I don't know if that was the only one or if there was multiples out there or what.
Well, Mouses Without Borders is still available on Microsoft downloads. It was updated. It was last updated 2021, but you know, the nature of what it does, it's not like it's going to change every day. Let me put a link to this in our chat if you want to include this.
I will include. Yes, I will definitely include that. So we've got Sean now sharing two kind of other things to discuss.
Tangential,
so, of course, in the list with the blog post, if you go over to buckleyplanet.com along this, I'll have all of the links to everything that we share and we talk about here. So, well, rather than go through, I know there's a lot that's within this. You open this up and explore the various topics. Look at all the announcements. Each one of these, and I'll just use as an example, as it goes into each of the. I wish it was responsive, and if I clicked on the page, that the menu would just close, but it doesn't do that.
It's a fly-in.
Right. But what's nice about this is that every one of these topics, you go down through and then it'll have like the related, if there was a formal blog post or announcement around that where that shows up, downloading assets. Here's the keynote. So you can actually go and watch this. And by the way, folks, if you have not already registered for Ignite, it's not too late. Digitally, it's free. You can go in and then view all of the recordings that are available. So you can watch the announcements in detail. And so it's got, here's the keynote, here's the general session. And then of course you've got the links and can go watch each of those things that you care about. So I highly recommend that folks go and do that. Some of the topics to run through. So again, we can jump back if there's something else that I'm missing from our list, gentlemen, but I always like to see some of the analysis, the data that came out, in this case from IDC. They had their 2024 AI opportunity study and the top 5 trends to watch. So they're talking about usage, of course, we've seen that, but what are the key findings here? For every dollar a company invests in a generative AI, the return of investment is $3.7. Wow.
I would love to see that data.
Yes.
Usage, I feel like we're missing a whole bunch of footnotes here.
What are you talking about, Sean? You're just crazy today. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I talk crazy on Fridays. That's how I am.
But a lot more people are experimenting. They're playing with it, which is still good to see. I keep asking the question too. I was just at TechCon 365 in Dallas last week, now 2 weeks ago from this broadcast, and asked this question in a couple of my sessions of how many people are in production with like Copilot or just AI in general, and not a lot of hands. How many that are piloting, that are playing with the technology? Geoff, it's not one of those videos. It's the
and notice Jeff's got cat butt right in front of him. You are setting yourself for a world of hurt, Geoff.
This is thunder.
There it is.
Thunder.
He brought the thunder. That's right.
Brought the thunder.
I haven't heard any thunder over to the left of me yet, so Taco is staying good. Sorry, that goes back to an earlier pre-recording conversation, folks.
Taco is the only dog that needs a pilot light.
Yes, near him at any time. So he's getting old. But the fact that everybody's trialing those things. And so there are only a couple hands, and we kind of looked at those people in the room that were neither using or trying to use any of the AI technology, and like, yay, get on board. They're part of that 25% that are still not using any kind of generative AI capability.
I will say I challenge these numbers because my experience at conferences is the same as yours. You ask who's using Copilot, there are the enthusiasts and the power users who are like, oh yeah, I'm writing my code with it and everything. But the bulk of the folks there are like, well, I've looked at it or I've read about it, etc. And this reminds me of many of the times over SharePoint's history where we've released, and we in the community are like super hyped about an upcoming capability and trying to impart that energy on the general populace. The general populace, there is a dissociation for a while between the way those of us who are entrenched in the community think and the general populace. I mean, I think Copilot is going to get there. I just think Microsoft's being extremely optimistic and perhaps taking liberties with some of these numbers.
What? You are just
They
today,
would
just
I know.
loco. Whoa, I don't know where you're getting these ideas. No,
It looks like it's marketing.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, I do agree with this third point here, but within 24 months, most organizations plan to expand beyond pre-built AI solutions. They're going to start looking at, I mean, that, and when I say I agree with this is one of those analysts like, of course, I think the majority of people,
yeah.
Right, they're going to go and do this. A lot of what we're going to see today is beyond. A lot of the announcements were on what you can do from a development standpoint to go and build your own solutions on top of the AI capability. Like that's the plan. So this was an easy layup of a prediction to make about the next 24 months. But yes,
not hard.
So,
the sun's going to burn out eventually as well. That's my
top 5 trends for AI. All right. Enhanced productivity has become table stakes. Yes. So yeah. All right. Okay. Let's move on. Companies are gravitating to more advanced AI solutions. That is true. So the companies that are experimenting and they're looking at the generative AI and they're saying, yeah, this is great. We need something that's more integrated. We need something that is tailored for our business. So yeah, I mean, in the conversations I'm having, that is exactly where companies go and they see it and they're like, yeah, this is nice. This is cool. I personally, like from day one, I've made the claim that having the Copilot license, $30 a user a month, like the value that it gives me for the out of the box basic capabilities of keeping things organized, of the transcription, of the telling me what I need to go focus on before and after meetings, all of that is worth the $30. I'm paying for a lot of other one-off productivity tools. In fact, I found a new AI tool that was introduced last week in Dallas that I need to share with you, gents.
Okay.
In fact, I might add that to the list here as well.
Okay.
So it's in fact, I'll add it here to remind me.
Okay.
I'm adding there. If you guys not seen it, I'll talk about it here at the end. But yeah, companies are building things. Next, adoption and value is growing across industries. Okay.
Statement of reality. Yeah, it's
Well, this is what I was looking.
The wind blows, water's wet, dirt is dry and hard.
I think we're starting to see. I was waiting for Ignite to start seeing like real ROI statements. I want to hear less Microsoft and more from industry of what they're doing with the technology.
Somebody who's done the cost benefit analysis. Yeah.
We need less marketing. We need more examples, more stories,
more data.
Yeah.
Real data objective.
Microsoft, I believe, needs to back off of their own marketing and allow
the message here. Microsoft, back off.
Yeah. The community needs to step up and be the louder voice around here's what we're actually doing with the technology. It's something that I feel as a marketing guy that it's been lacking the last 2 years.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. You're better off, I would suggest, learning about AI, for instance, if you want to do development. There are several MVPs who have invested a tremendous amount. The guy who comes to mind is Andy Honeycutt, because if you go to a conference and he's in the speaker room and he's talking about how he put together prototype code with Copilot and GitHub, or he's doing this with Copilot over there to summarize. I mean, he's come up with some really compelling examples that represent real business problems.
Yep.
So Andy Honeycutt, who will be William Honeycutt, you might want to check him out. He's an MVP in the apps and Office apps, and we're M365 Apps and Services.
Correct.
I just know that I have SharePoint, so I'm sure.
Nope. Great example here. You should put his name in the notes there, Sean, too, as I'll make sure I'll add it in. I'll add a link over if you don't know.
I'll find him. Yeah, I know Andy. Well, of course I know Andy, but let me find him for everyone else.
But speaking of this point, again, number 4, AI leaders are seeing greater returns and accelerated innovation. So we just need more of these data points, more of these examples, insights. What did they actually go and do? How did they extend beyond the out of the box? What did they do? What's unique about this? What's the value that they saw? We just need more of those stories. Like, I'm sold on the technology. I believe that it's there, but it's the whole thing. We got to move away from talking about the qualitative, and we need to show the quantitative benefits.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be able to measure, like, this is what it's doing in this industry, this space, with these functions, to be able to make that case. I think that will help accelerate businesses that are piloting to move into production. And then the last one, looking ahead, skilling remains a top challenge. Yeah, it's so important to, this is not just upgrade to these new features in Microsoft 365 or in Power Platform. It's a different way of doing things. And so you need to have a learning path for your employees to adopt and utilize these capabilities, depending on what you roll out, depending on what you customize and build. So anyway, so there's that. There's links to their actual IDC presentation, which goes through and shares all the details of their study. So I'm sure I'll be doing some blog posts around a bit more in depth into some of this content, some great content here.
Yeah, I look forward to reading those, because you have a way of putting things together with the business proposition in mind. So I look forward to what you write, Christian.
I need to go look out in Work Lab. There might be already some blogs and some other insights looking into this data I need to go explore. So
get Copilot to summarize it for you.
I will. You're stealing my thunder there. Taco's still not over there.
Copilot.
Yep.
And Copilot, summarize slide 7. Write me a blog post.
So here, you can do this actually, you could input all of these items and just summarize all these things. What do I care about? Tell me, Copilot, my Copilot overlords. So this announcement came out earlier, so pre-show, but did it? There were some various announcements around Copilot, but yeah. So the announcement here.
When did Ignite conclude? Was that yesterday?
Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Is it
today or a week ago from this podcast?
Yeah. No, it was. I don't know. I think it was.
I know I've been hearing about it, and I know it was recently, but I stopped seeing Chicago pictures, I think.
I think it ended on Wednesday night.
Makes sense.
So so there were announcements around the Copilot Actions.
We got agents in SharePoint now. So
yes, which is very exciting. That was one of the experiments that I was playing with was, and I think I talked about it in our last time together, how I was putting all my my company, CollabTalk LLC, all of the financial data into a SharePoint Copilot, building that out, running some experiments. So this will build agents around a lot of that to do more. So the experiment lives on.
It'll be interesting to play with.
Yeah,
for sure.
So that all builds on to the Wave 2 announcements, which we did talk about last time.
Yeah, we did.
There's also the so I've got a couple blog posts here. Here's the one that goes through and talks about kind of all of the November announcements, what's new in Copilot. It went in, so each of the Office products, some of the partner solutions that are out there. In fact, this is another thing. I heard some great feedback from people attending Ignite, talking about some of the really cool partner solutions that are out there. I saw a couple posts from Tom Arbuthnot, who is is a Microsoft Teams MVP. So he was over showing some of what like Logitech is doing, some of the telephony products. No, that we love talking about the telephony.
Because we all are telephony experts.
Hardcore telephony guys.
You know, Potts is my middle name.
Just a lot
I still miss my signaling system 7.
Yes. So that stuff is cool. That's out there. This was big. This, of course, was announced before, but there's some chatter around this.
Hold on, I gotta check my pager.
Okay. Oh, excellent.
We were talking. I was with friends last night. We all used to do support. We were talking about rocking the pager, and because my friend has a young daughter, and so we're like, we used to carry these things that would simply give us a phone number. And they're like, what would you do with that? We'd call the phone number. You'd call people? We'd actually call people. Yeah. And if it had 911, you better call right away.
Yep.
But everybody who had one had, you still get ghost pages where it feels like your hips vibrating. And
like, I think of that every time. Yeah. Well, I just remember one time, I know you guys have heard me tell this, but I was consulting with the company. I had a pager because we were doing a deployment. And so we had them specifically around this important deployment. It was every page was a 911 with these pages while you carried them. But I had my cell phone, so on my belt in a clip. I had the pager, of course. I had my ID badge. It was on one of those accordion spring back carriers.
Yep.
And I kept joking that it felt like I was wearing a utility belt. And so one day I got
how you looked.
I bought a little telescoping laser sword lightsaber, and I put that on my belt. I wore that thing the entire day. It wasn't until late in the day, towards the end of the day, I was standing in the doorway in a group meeting. And the director of in IT that was sitting behind a desk and about 10 people standing around looks at me, pauses the meeting, is like, is that a lightsaber? Like,
and you said, no, I'm just happy to see you.
But the fact that I wore it with all the other accoutrements on my belt for the entire day and no one said a word until the end, it was fantastic. So
there's for those of you who are old amongst us, there was a television show called MASH, and Hawkeye Pierce was played by Alan Alda. And to prove that people don't pay attention, he went into the mess hall totally nude to get his food. Nobody said a thing except the one new person in the camp who dropped the tray. And so everybody's looking, but he made his point. It's like he could go nude. And I just see you with that lightsaber, just blending in. It's
not nude though.
No, we don't need that. The world.
Nobody needs that.
Nope.
Yeah.
We love you, but not that much.
Yeah. So anyway, back to the topic here. The new chat and channels experience in Teams. And I know there was a lot of chatter in the MVP circles, a lot of unhappy people with moving away from the structure there. For one, am a fan. It's different. But now what this allows you to do essentially is that instead of going in and having to open up the team to find the channels to get to the place that you want to be, and you've been able to for a while now pin a channel and up to your favorites, and so you've had your chats and you've had your pinned channels separate. This now combines all of that so that you can group them together. So if I'm working on 3 projects, but those 3 projects I could group, like for project 1, I might be able to pin 2 of the channels that I'm most active in, as well as chats with people that are part of that project. I can group that. I can, then for each of the projects, I can have all those pieces together. So it's essentially like giving you the ability to kind of drag and drop the pieces that are most important to you into that favorites, instead of having the automatically in order that you save them up, pin them, channels separate from chat, separate from teams. And so some people don't like it. They're like, I want the old way, but I believe there is, I think I saw that there is a way to toggle back to that classic view.
Yeah, and the plumber in me just thinks, what a nightmare implementation this must have been behind the scenes, because Teams data is scattered across Exchange, SharePoint. So you're coordinating permissions across products, and you're brokering all this with some top-level coordinating service or orchestration. And that's why so many things in Teams, people go, well, I want to keep this, but I want to delete this. It's like, it doesn't work that way. It's you get this as part of a Teams installation, or you don't.
I think you may have missed this, Sean. As it says right here, it's simple by default. So it is simple. It's not complex because it says it right there.
This product is as simple as I am.
Yeah, it's. But I mean, I do like this organization.
Yeah,
it's just a different way of looking at it. It's just going to take some adjustment for people.
Yep.
Again, I do believe you can toggle back to the classic view there. But I, for one, am a fan. So it walks you through. We've got the link, of course, to that. Go play with that.
I just want them to roll out a Teams client that's going to work all the time. That's me.
Let's move on to the new topic, Sean.
Ooh, shiny bauble.
Yeah, I always say that it used to be when Teams is brand new and changes would happen and it's not working the way. And you run through, did I change something? Did I have something else open? What did I do on my side? Do I need to update something? No, it's never me. It's always you, Teams. It's always you, Teams.
And it's not more often than not, it's getting to be that way. Yeah, it's because a couple people in my company and we've had a problem where there's a Teams add-in for Outlook, which helps Teams coordinate with Outlook. But that thing is an old COM component. It's rickety and it often hangs. And when it does, you try to launch a Teams meeting, it won't open Teams. You can't even get to the meeting. You try and launch it from Teams, you can't.
And I'll often have to, I'll do that and I'll have to go over to Teams and go into the calendar and open it up from there because it won't launch the right way.
Or somebody else has to start the meeting and then you can join it. And this is a meeting you have authored. So you have to start my meeting so that I can attend.
Right.
What kind of insanity is that?
Well, knowing you, I'm okay with that. With you,
insane in the membrane. Insane in the membrane.
That's right. Well, we're just sounding older with every episode, which I guess makes sense because
we're sounding older and Jeff's looking older.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm just telling again, beard on the top of the head.
Yeah, because I mean, he's rocking the mountain man look pretty good.
No, thank you.
The mountain man look for a man in Massachusetts. Yes.
I can hide things with my beard. That's my only
squirrels, nuts, things like that.
Pens.
Yes.
God, I'm waiting for like leaves, twigs to fall out of your beard.
That thing happens after I do yard work.
I bet I can totally see that.
I did see a YouTube video of a woman that was trying to smuggle illicit substances through. They were in little pod-shaped things in her hair weaves. Like you could not tell. It was incredible. I'm like, that's brilliant. Except the dog that smells stuff is just like
doesn't care where it's at. Yeah.
No.
Unless it's hermetically sealed.
Right.
Or as a person I had dinner with last night who sometimes gets challenged with words, he said, hermaphroditically sealed. And I'm like, oh, so it's intersects and it's sealed.
How does that even work?
So
I don't know what is the sealing part of that whole equation. I don't even know.
Yeah, and the further you ask questions, you realize you want to really back off. And
that's a very specific workforce requirement. That job requirement.
Our intersex workforce is hermaphroditically sealed and competent.
Right. Yeah. That one person. Is there redundancy in that role? I mean, what if they're out sick? Who's doing that? All right.
Good
Okay. All right. We're going to get flagged here by YouTube, guys.
Yeah, and Brad, on the event you happen to watch this, I say it with love, man.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. What is new in Azure Container Apps? What is new?
Azure Container Apps. Well, I know that for container apps, we've got a better sandbox experience now with Microsoft actually helping us. For anybody, and I imagine this is many of our listeners, for any of you who have ever set up test or demo environments, or what we commonly call sandbox in the dev world, the very first thing after provisioning these is you need to load your tool set. You need to load your programming languages, load your source control, anything you're going to use to prototype or build. And that is a non-trivial process for most things. Microsoft is attempting to help us accelerate that process, which is nice, by doing some configuration with the container apps. And now with dynamic sessions, they're like putting a code interpreter with Python directly into the environment. And so with having that directly available to you, you can start to manipulate things at a programmatic level, where previously you would have had to, for instance, install PowerShell, get the right commandlet sets into the environment, set up your execution policy, because PowerShell won't let you get off the box with unsigned libraries. So all sorts of configuration and work you would have to do just to get to the starting line. And Microsoft has helped us with that and move the starting line back closer to us, which is nice.
Very cool.
So,
well, we've got the link to that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree.
So hey, yeah, and this is something that I saw a bunch of chatter around too, is that you finally have Microsoft Places live. This is one of those things, like, I was never sure, like, can we talk about some of this as MVPs? We were hearing about this.
What's my NDA cover? Yeah, exactly.
And so I know a lot of organizations that went and tried to solve this without having a native solution, and through third party, or they try and develop something themselves. And so this is just the way to be able to build in for a hybrid environment to plan out, where are people working from. And so if I'm inviting people, if I think, hey, 5 people have accepted, are they going to be in the room with me? No. 3 of the people are, 2 are there, and 3 are working remotely, but will be attending the meeting. And so what kind of interaction that you're going to have, what you need to be able to support for each of those things. That's
the one thing I want to be sure to point out with Places, though, is it takes a Teams premium license. Your run-of-the-mill like E3 license or whatever you get with, well, they unbundled all that, right? So now we have separate Teams licenses, but the premium license is required for the Places functionality.
Is that, do you still have to premium if you have E5? Like, I mean, that's the complexity of the licensing. You have to look, and
it's always changing.
And right, so you have to be aware of.
And we were talking about this before we started, because me personally, I've got my family on a set of E3 licenses that's like $600 a year. Well, Microsoft now has a family plan for M365, which is much more cost effective. I just don't know how it lines up against the E3 functionality we've got now. So I've got to go out to the site and do the current comparison to understand where things are.
That's where I actually need to go and make some changes based on usage patterns with my family plan as well, to see if because I've got pilots of a few different things, but even what they for the free licenses that they give MVPs, that even changed.
Yeah, and that caused problems when it did.
Yeah,
a lot of us, the license expired. I still am not getting email in my Bitstream Foundry tenant. Sharon's folks are looking at that, and I know it's due to the licensing, because I became unlicensed, and unlicensed users won't have routed SMTP mail to them. So I stopped getting email, and Christian, you were one of the people who let me know that.
Yeah, and this is, I'll just point out, Sean, this is one of those things that they were telling us, warning us, like, hey, don't let this expire, go and make the switch. So I went and did that. They said it's going to cause problems, and
it did.
You just had to prove them correct.
So you did what you were supposed to. I did what probably the average person would do.
Yeah,
which is,
you're not alone.
Important, I'll get to it.
Yeah. So a lot going on here, which is really cool. What is this? I'm not even aware of this. See, I need to dig through some of this. Team guidance. Guidance which identifies a purpose for team days in the office. Oh, well, that's cool. So, I mean, this is where a lot of it's kind of, like going in and using whiteboard, for example, and the templates that are out there. And why would you use a template in a whiteboard? It's like, well, it's just gives you ideas of how, if you're holding a meeting where you're brainstorming on something, it gives you kind of a template, a methodology to kind of walk through to help you more fully build out that. So the guidance in teams works in a similar way. Like, hey, we're coming together. Here's some tools to help you structure this. We're all going to be in place today. Here, let's make the most of the time that we're together in the office. So here's a template to help build that out. So that's really cool. I mean, making it easier to book meeting rooms and spaces. Yeah, I mean, I love this capability. Yeah. It's I'll just say it's about time that some of this again is native, because I know a lot of organizations that went out to third-party solutions because
absolutely
the product couldn't do it. Safely activate your data estate within Purview. Oh yes, tons of news during Ignite around Purview. So it was great to see a bunch of familiar faces. Erica Tully was there. I know Erica's not been as many events.
No, she's not. But since she wrote the her compliance book, I know that's been she's been with that team at Microsoft, and she's done a great job. I still recommend the book, even though it was written a year or two ago.
I'm going to put the book link in the resources down below, folks. So yeah, highly recommend.
Erica Telly is an MVP, longtime community member, very active in the community and very knowledgeable. Has worked with Microsoft directly and indirectly for a number of years, and she distilled her knowledge down into that book, and that's an excellent book. So it still focuses on things when it was a compliance center. But now that Purview is the branding that's taking over, I guess Purview is definitely an area where we can get some AI usage, because anybody who's ever gone into Purview and reviewed their tenant status would notice hundreds of things that are probably in error or need to be verified. Right. And so there's a process to that, and it takes time. It's something I talk about in my intro to admin class, but it does take time, and that's something I think AI will be able to help with.
Well, Purview is a brand. Again, people think of like Purview as a product. It's a newer product. Like, no, it was actually the combining and rebranding of dozens of products and features into this, the GRC. So the governance, well, is that right? Did I get the acronym right? Security and compliance. There was a GSC. Yeah. Anyway, but in that space, what I saw as part of when they looking at it 2025, that your data governance is like issue number one. It's going to be the hot topic. And having worked with several of the governance ISVs within the space, it's one of the reasons why like AvePoint was the lead sponsor, was the top sponsor for Ignite. Was all the focus was on governance and security of your data. But the conversations that I've had with customers at the various conferences has been almost entirely about governance. People that they want to do Copilot, and they realize that in their initial trials, they were starting kind of like the Delve experience, that people were seeing content that they shouldn't see. That they were, no longer could they rely on security through obscurity, that they needed to actually go in and clean up and organize their data. And that's a lot of what Purview allows them to go and do.
Yep. Gives you visibility into a lot of things you might otherwise have to dig for.
Yeah. So lots of information around, adding on capabilities, streamlining of what Purview provides. I'm not going to go into all of the things because there's just a lot that are out there.
Yeah.
Let's see. This one, Sean. This is one of your topics you wanted to cover.
Yeah. So for those of you who may not know me, I started my career as a polymer chemist. And so my background is I've got a BS in chemistry, and I've come from the chemistry and science side of things over to computer science. And quantum computing is something that I've found an interest in because so many of the problems it can solve or is positioned to solve are very complex challenges that would take conventional computing resources forever to do, like breaking encryption and finding common roots and things like that, factoring prime numbers. Well, the nice thing is Microsoft, there was an announcement a while back, I'm not quite sure how long ago, but they had introduced what they were calling a logical qubit or a recoverable qubit, which, if you know anything about quantum computing, it all involves entanglement of qubits, which are logical, the quantum equivalent of bits in the system.
Sean, yep. I know that Ant-Man talked about the problems with quantum entanglement, so I'm aware of that. And I'm also, just to separate, I'm familiar with the video game Qbert, but not Qubit.
Isn't a qubit the length of a man's hand to his elbow?
Yes, QBIT, qubit, from the elbow to the tip of the hand. Yeah.
How many qubits in a furlong? I'm confused.
Jeez.
Edward Furlong from Terminator 2?
Do not stop.
Correct. That's what I'm thinking.
Anyway, I'll cut to the chase. So Microsoft, for those of you who are familiar with computer memory, you can buy, standard computer memory, which is subject to error due to environmental conditions potentially, or electrical anomalies, things like that. And then there's error correction capable, or ECC memory, which typically goes into servers where you store something and it's resistant. The computer has enough information to be able to determine if the information it's storing in memory is correct. And so what Microsoft has done has built this logical qubit that has kind of internal redundancy and resiliency, so that we can start to, the more qubits you put together, because the bigger the problem you're trying to solve, you need more and more qubits. The problem is the more you bring in, the harder it is to maintain that entanglement, because these systems are operating at close to absolute zero. They're operating in electrically EF and RM shielded environments, because all of those things destabilize entanglement. But introducing this new logical qubit with redundancy, sort of resiliency in domains, is a big step forward. And it's one of those fundamental technology additions that, unless you know what you're looking for, you're not going to recognize it. But it will have a dramatic impact on our ability to move forward in this technology area. So it's something very exciting to me.
Very cool. I just sorry, I just added some notes just to remind me to add a funny clip.
And make sure you include the original Qbert machine. Now remember, what was special about the original Qbert machine? Think about playing the game.
Yeah, it was a giant box that you stood in front of versus home. Like what?
But when Qbert jumped and the snakes went off,
yep,
it had a hammer on the inside that hit the case.
Oh.
So if you ever remember playing Qbert, you would like hop on a disc and you'd hear this thunk. It had a hammer inside.
I didn't realize that.
Nor did I until I found out.
Huh, that's interesting.
Interesting.
And all these young folks have absolutely no idea what we're talking about, but I will add the link in as well. You know what we're talking about. This is old, like 80s video games, folks. This is our arcade games. Not, I guess eventually, I don't remember which system it came out. Probably on like Nintendo had Qbert the game as well, but
probably did. But yeah, we're talking about good old fashioned. Bring a bunch of quarters or a roll of quarters.
Right.
Go to a room with video games and spend your money.
I'll share a link there.
It might have been ColecoVision.
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that other system. People didn't even know that.
ColecoVision had the Smurf game.
Everybody knows Atari and Nintendo and later Xbox and PlayStation.
There was Intellivision too.
Intellivision, Activision. Yeah, there are probably a couple more that we're forgetting. But
doubt.
One other huge announcement. I loved this. There was a couple MVPs who talked about this and shared this. The first cloud PC was announced for Windows 365. So there you can see it. It's the little box down underneath the monitors. It supports 2 4K monitors, and it has, I think, 3 or 4 USB ports underneath that. But yeah, so the idea that you don't need an operating system, Windows 365, I guess, well, you got your operating system, but it's all out in the cloud. You don't need to have anything local. So we can start to see some companies where you can have this idea of like having terminal access. I mean, I remember this back from the early 90s, some of the companies that I worked with before we all moved to PCs and then laptops. But you had terminals. And so anybody could go sit at any terminal, you log in, then all of your files, all of your data that's relevant through the master control program. Sorry, I'm doing yet another Tron reference here. I'm going to share the video link to Tron, a quick scene from Tron where they try to, Sean said the words of merge with the memory, and that's actually something that's directly from the movie. Do you think we can merge with this memory bit? Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll be sharing that clip. Anyway,
make sure you share the definition for Tron as well, because if we're instructing the younger members of our profession, Tron was trace on, Troff was trace off. Tron was a tracer program in the movie. So after that, master control program, or MCP.
Well, you just explained it there, so I'm not going to go find that. I'm just going to provide the clip. So
okay. Sorry for stealing your thunder yet again.
You can Copilot Tron and have it give you a summary of the movie.
You shut your filthy mouth.
But this idea of companies can have these, I just go back to working for the phone company where they had these miniature tiny cubicles. And so if I was hot desking, I could go into this area that, I didn't have an office. I didn't have a space. I was, working from home 2 days a week. I could drop in, grab one of these desks, log right into the terminal. You can have that experience here with this device. So people can get to all their data, have the full functions, but you don't have to have these dedicated space to an individual. It could be a shared space that whoever's using it can log in. So love this idea.
It's a wise option.
Yes. And so the last item to talk about here before we wrap, gentlemen. So we're talking about, so Sean, you're going to share this as well?
Yeah. So I don't even remember how we got into this. Our pre-show conversations probably should be an outtakes reel per Geoff's statement. But this is something that Silicon Graphics built. It's called, I think they call it the wall of entropy. But it's the idea that computers cannot generate truly random numbers. It's pseudo-random based on a seed value. Well, they'd have images of these lamps on the walls, and based on how the image was, it would generate a seed value for a random number generator. And that would provide you the closest thing to a random number, because most of the time people use things like the number of ticks since the start of a system as a potential seed value and whatnot. But this was something that was kind of cool. And they would maintain it online, and you could go out and generate pseudo random numbers and things. But it was something interesting. I
love it. And the patent is expired, people. So go out, utilize this, do something, build something with it. But yeah, it was titled Method for Seeding a Pseudo-Random Number Generator with a Cryptographic Hash of a Digitization of a Chaotic System. So again, it's the simplified answer to a question that nobody asked.
If you wired up like 200 Furbies,
yes. So you can improve on the patent Right. You could improve on this patent with that random capability. And it truly is random. You don't know which Furby's batteries will die when.
And for those of you watching this show, if you never see or hear from Geoff again, I would suspect foul play.
From a Furby.
From a Furby, no less.
If there were a creature, a robotic toy to come to life with an evil spirit and kill Geoff, then yes, Furby would be my choice as well. Or a Tickle Me Elmo. That would also
we'll make the wall of Chucky.
Justice. Yeah.
The wall of Chucky dolls. So
yeah. I'd rather see Geoff taken out by Elmo than Chucky. Be more entertaining. Just when it happens, Geoff.
You want to
play? When it happens, Geoff, just make sure that you're in front of a camera, like stream it somehow. Have the presence of mind to stream it.
It'll be your legacy.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, really appreciate your time. There's a lot of content to go through. Obviously, we didn't cover everything that came out with Ignite. For my next episode, we're going to have some folks that were actually there, attended live in Chicago, that are going to share some of their takeaways. So what we've missed from the book of news, because often, that is the value of being in person. Yeah, we're watching the sessions. I'm always more interested in what's being discussed in the expo hall between the sessions.
What's the poll?
Right. And it's so much more relevant to where organizations are and what's going on. So I'm looking forward to, I'm heading to Stockholm in a couple of weeks for ESPC and get some firsthand interaction with people that have attended both, as well as Microsoft folks to hear more. It's again, looking at what people like we're talking about during Ignite, and then what is the conversation that's still happening 3 weeks later at ESPC. It's interesting to look at. A lot of times those are the sticking points, or people will find the faults in the news to say, yeah, you announced that, but this is a gaping hole. This is missing. Where's that feature? That kind of thing. So
yeah, I think it's as valuable to be able to listen and compare the results and how the message has changed, so that maybe Microsoft integrated some feedback, and looking at those items might bring some additional insight as to how Microsoft is approaching what they're trying to do with the technology. So,
well, like any statistics, it's never about the slice of data, a point in time. It's about the trends of that data over time. Mm-hmm. So,
agreed.
Yeah, that'll be interesting, as well as, hey, the end of year CollabTalk Tweet Jam at the end of December. It will be another place to pay attention, and we're going to be doing that across multiple technologies. So we're going to be running the Tweet Jam across, of course, X and Blue Sky and Mastodon and LinkedIn, so that people can participate wherever they're most comfortable. So interesting stuff. So good times. Well, gentlemen, thanks so much for your time. And as always, we'll be back. I think we're going to try and meet again. Probably not, because we've got a lot going on in December, probably January when we get together next with announcements. So
we'll plan accordingly.
Right.
Thanks
for watching,
Christian. Yep. Take care, guys.
Talk to you later. You've been listening to the CollabTalk Podcast. New episodes are published weekly, and you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and most other podcast platforms. Thanks for listening.